Hello and thank you for watching. This is going to be my salsa tutorial and it came out really good. This is an overview shot of all the ingredients you're going to be using in this recipe. This is going to be a little bit of a lengthy video, but that's because I'm going to go everything in depth and how to make it. So we're going to start with about 3 or 4 tablespoons of butter, and I'm going to split it up into 2 sections so it coats a little evenly because I'm using a griddle pan, and the reason for using a griddle pan is so I can get some nice roasted edges into the tomatoes when I grill them. So I'm going to put it on kind of a high setting so I can get the butter melted, and when the tomatoes in there, they're going to have to cook pretty hot. So like I said, I'm splitting up the 2 groups of butter to make it melt a little bit more evenly throughout the pan so it coats it completely. Alright, so while we're waiting for that to melt, we're going to go ahead and get our tomatoes. I'm using 2 different types, so I'm going to cut the one type into fourths because it's a little bit larger than the other 2, and I'm going to cut the other 2 in halves. Make sure you wash them to make sure there's nothing left on them from when they were picked or purchased or transferred to your home or in your fridge. Alright, so I'm going to cut these in half and set them aside, and then I'm going to cut the other into 4s. And the reason for that is just to get a more even grilling onto this to the exposed part of the tomato. The reason for grilling is it brings out a more robust flavor from the tomatoes. It's going to bring a lot more flavor into your salsa that way. Alright, so we're going to move the pan around and make sure the butter's nice and even, and that way you don't get any large puddles that are going to end up burning. Alright, so once it's nice and heated up, you're going to set your tomatoes in there and make sure you set them on there firm onto the grill lines so you can get them in there deep. You can see it's sizzling already, and that's going to be what you're going to want to see throughout them cooking. Alright, we're going to place them out there evenly and let those cook for a little bit. So about 5-10 minutes in, you're going to want to turn them over. You're only going to want to turn over the tomatoes if you cut them into 4ths. If you cut them in halves, you don't need to turn them over the entire time they're cooking. You're just going to want to move them periodically, make sure they're not sticking or make sure they're not burning. You can see the nice grill lines, and that's what you're going to want to look for. Alright, so while that's cooking, you're going to take some garlic and you're going to want to crack it open. And the reason you crack it is so that the paper from the outside comes off a little bit easier. If it's cracked like that, it's easier to split apart and get the whole paper off. Now the reason we're using some garlic, we're going to cut up some onion with it, and we're going to throw both of those into a separate pan with some butter, and we're going to caramelize those. Alright, so periodically, every 5 to 10 minutes, you're going to want to flip your tomatoes if they're cut into 4ths, or if they're cut into halves, you're going to want to move them around and make sure that they aren't burning or sticking. We're going to take our onion and we're going to cut it up. You don't have to cut it too fine, just chop it up so that you can get them nice and evenly coated into the pan with all the butter so they cook evenly. So I'm just going to slice them up once, one direction, and then leave them that way. Alright, now once you get all the onion chopped up or sliced up, you're gonna want to take your garlic and you're gonna want little cubes, not necessarily minced or fine diced. You're gonna go for kind of a coarse, rough chunk, but not a. You're gonna cut it about twice. That's so it can get in between all the onion and move around. You don't want it to set in any large setting or any large pieces because it may end up burning. Alright, now I'm going to take all this onion and garlic and I'm going to throw it straight into the pan. And I'm going to add the butter and turn on the heat after. You don't necessarily have to do it this way. Most people would prefer to melt the butter in the pan first, just because it may be a little bit easier to get the butter melted evenly. But honestly, I find it doesn't really matter. The butter will melt in there and coat a little bit better, in my opinion, this way. Alright, I really like garlic, especially in my spicy salsas. I like the heavy hint of garlic, but not too much. So I'm going to add an extra clove. If you're not that fond of the flavor, you can go ahead and not use this extra clove. But like I said, I like the flavor of garlic pretty well. Alright, so once you get all your onion and garlic added there, I'm going to take some butter. I'm going to do about 3 to 4 tablespoons of butter, and I'm going to cut it up into little cubes and spread it evenly around the onion and garlic. And once you have split them up evenly, you're going to go ahead and turn the flame on and move it around so they melt in with the onion and garlic. Now I like to season a little bit, just a little bit before I start getting it all done, and this way the butter has a little bit extra flavor to it when it's melting in with the onions. And I'm going to add some fresh cracked black pepper and some kosher salt, and these are going to be to taste. So if you're not looking for a very salty, high sodium salsa, then you might want to do without the salt here. Alright, so we're going to turn that on medium high and get all the butter melted in there, and you're going to hear it kind of sizzling, and that's going to indicate that you're caramelizing it good. You're going to want to make sure it's all spread around nice and evenly, nice and pat down into the butter. It's all evenly coated. Now you're going to start to smell sweet aromas as opposed to the acidic normal scent you would get from an onion. And that's basically what's going to happen as you're doing this, is you're cooking out all the acidity and you are going to be cooking in more sweetness. So right there, that was chili powder. I don't know if the camera got that very well or not, but you're going to use about 2 tablespoons and just cover the top of the onions and garlic. Right there, you're going to add some cayenne pepper. And now, if you don't want that much heat or kick into your salsa, you can use a little bit less, but I'm using 2 tablespoons, and I'm going to use enough to coat the top. Now here's cumin. Cumin's a pretty robust flavor, so in my opinion, I wouldn't use a full tablespoon. I think 2 teaspoons is about enough, and you'll get a nice hint in there. Now I'm going to add a little bit more fresh cracked peppercorns in there. And then I'm going to start mixing all that up. Get that going nice and good, and mix it all together and get all the flavors moved around, and make sure all the seasonings and the butter, and just make sure that it's evenly coated. You don't want any seasoning deposits in there because they might bubble or might crust up later in the process. Now remember, we're doing this while the tomatoes are on, so you're going to want to periodically be checking them. This is going to take about 10 to 15 minutes. You'll start to notice the transparency of the onions and the malleability, or how flexible they are. Alright, so once most of the butter's cooked into them and you get a nice cooked down pile, you're going to want to remove them off the flame and start cutting up your cilantro. Now, a lot of people like cilantro a lot more than I am, or a lot more than I do. And in this case, I'm only going to use about a third cup, or a small handful. You can use more if you like the flavor more, but I just think it's essential in most salsas. Now again, I'm going to wash everything off just to make sure it's not dirty or covered in dirt. Now you're going to chop this up, not too fine, but I'm going to cut it about 2 or 3 times, just so I can get it less chunky and off of the stalk. The reason I'm not chopping anything up too much is because we're throwing it all straight into a blender. I'm going to throw the cilantro in first because I have it chopped. Alright, so now we're going to take one lime, and I'm going to roll it here to make it a little bit easier when I squeeze the juice out into the blender. I'm going to cut it in half just to get it exposed, and then we're going to take each half and juice them into the blender there. Alright, once you get both halves of that lime, or the lemon squeezed in there, I'm sorry, you're going to go ahead and take a quarter of a lime, not a full half, or not a full lime, or lemon, I'm sorry. You're going to take the lemon, cut it into 1/4, and take the seeds out. And go ahead and juice that into there. Oh, careful, they're slippery after those limes. Get that nice and squeezed into there and get all the juices down on the cilantro. And then you're going to take your caramelized onions and your garlic. Now it should look like this. And you'll notice after the spices they smell pretty flavorful. You're going to dump all that in there. Make sure you get everything into the blender. And then you're going to take these straight from the flame, as I like to do it, and throw them straight into the blender like this. You'll notice they're nice and charred, and the skins will be almost peeling off, and they'll be squishy, and they'll smell a lot more robust. This is going to give it a little bit of a more bold flavor to it. Alright, now we're going to take our tomato sauce and alright, so you're probably wondering where the heat's at, and we're going to get that from our homemade, or homegrown rather, serranos. You don't need to have homegrown serranos, obviously. You can buy them from the store, or use jalapenos if you can't find serranos. Now my homegrown ones are from a small plant, so I'm going to use about 3, 4, almost 5, I believe. But you don't need to use as many. The ones you buy from the store are going to be a lot bigger, obviously. So I recommend using about 2 to 3 jalapenos or serranos, depending on what's available and how hot you like it. Alright, so now we're going to take some tomato sauce and pour that in there. And the reason for this is so that it's a little bit more runny. I like my salsas more runny and liquidy. this is going to come out in a pretty good texture and a pretty good flavor. So instead of adding water or oil, I like to use tomato sauce just to blend in the flavors a little bit and to even out the heat. Alright, so you're going to want to start on the blender's lower setting just to make sure that you don't spin it out too fast. And once you do that, you're going to step it up a little bit more just until you get all of the ingredients. You kind of see them to the nice small texture and small size that you like. Gonna blend it around for a little bit because I like to make sure all the cilantro is nice and blended up evenly. Then from there we're gonna pour it into a bowl and put it in the fridge for 4 to 5 hours until it's cool. If you like your salsa warm and you don't want to wait that long, I recommend leaving it in the fridge for about an hour, hour and a half to at least let the flavors blend and mix together completely. And then you have a done salsa. I hope you enjoy, and thank you for watching. Like and subscribe this video if you like this, and comment and tell me if you make it.